Welcome to the DOC, Dose of Courage podcast, where I give you what you need to become bolder, more confident, and courageous enough to go after everything God said you could have. I'm your host, Courage Molina, Chief Courage Crusader. Let's go. Today's episode is brought to you by Courage Bible University. CBU is an online school for individuals wanting to grow in their faith through Bible application. Courses and programs offered are designed to give you a working knowledge of the Bible, deepen your relationship with God, and give you principles for application. We are to be not only hearers of the word, but also doers. How can we apply what we don't understand? How can we understand what we are not reading or studying? So are you ready to get some understanding? Enrollment is free, so enroll today. You can check out the self-paced courses, discipleship program, the Courage Circle, there are master classes on there, and a few personal development courses as well. With courses being added every month, you definitely want to stay plugged in. And for being a Courage Crusader, you can get 20% off any course or program you sign up for using the coupon code DOC. Check it out at couragebibleuniversity.com. That's couragebibleuniversity.com. What up, you guys? I hope you guys are doing well. I'm so excited to have you back here. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, whether it's on Apple Podcast or Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You don't want to miss this amazing podcast. All these doses of courages. All these doses of courage I hand out each week. You don't want to miss it. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe. And if you've been rocking with me for a minute, I would love for you to continue sharing the podcast, for you to write a review. If you love it, share it. If you're rocking with it, you're listening to it every week. If you love it, share it. You can share it on social media. You can share it in your email. You can share it with Facebook groups. Share it everywhere via text message. Share it everywhere with all the people. I want to listen. I feel like I'm always confessing on this thing. It's like each dose of courage starts with a confessional. I don't know about you, but I pray a lot for blessings, right? Like I legit want to be blessed. I want blessings upon blessings. I want God to answer my prayers. And I'm not just talking about like in one area of my life, in all areas of my life. I want to be blessed. But what I've realized is that sometimes we get blessed and we just start acting a fool. We just start messing up. Let me not say acting a fool. We just start messing up. And so we have to be careful with the blessing. Okay, and I don't just mean take care of it, right? So it doesn't matter what your blessings are. It doesn't matter what you're thinking about right now as it relates to like, okay, I know that this is something that I prayed for, right? I prayed for this blessing. Those are the ones specifically I want to talk about. I want to talk about the ones that you prayed for. You prayed for this blessing, right? I don't know what it is. Maybe you prayed for a spouse, or you prayed for business, or you prayed for increase, or you prayed for children. You prayed for a new job, new position. There is something that you prayed for. There is a blessing that you prayed for, you waited, you fasted for, and then God gave it to you. Some of you prayed for healing, and healing was a blessing. You prayed for the opportunity to go to college, and then you got accepted, and that's been a blessing. There are things that you've prayed for, and now you have possession of them, of this thing, of this new health, whatever, right? Because you've prayed for this blessing. But I want you to step back for a second and remember what things were like before you got it. Because I think we missed that. I want you to think about what things were like before you got the blessing. During the time you were praying, during the time you were hoping, some of you had fear and doubt about how things were going to turn out. You were uncertain. You weren't even 100% sure that God was hearing your prayers, that He was going to bless you, that He was going to give you the thing that you wanted, the thing that your heart desired. But I want you to think about what your life was like. So, because this is the thing that I see, and this is why I want you to think about it, where you are going to church, you're volunteering, you are taking care of your household, your family, you have great relationships, you had some great things going on before you got the blessing. And it's fine that you prayed for it. I pray for things all the time, like I said. But then when you got the blessing, now that you have it, you've replaced the blesser with the blessing. Do you understand what I'm saying? You were lonely and you prayed for friendships, but now you're not going to church on Sunday because you're too busy hanging out having brunch, right? You prayed for increase on the job, but now you are missing out on time with God because you're traveling all over the world, right? You prayed for a spouse, now you're dating and you ain't seen church in a month of Sundays. You prayed for a business or ministry or to be able to work from home. Now you're not getting up out of the bed so you can still spend that quiet time with God, right? And I'm not telling you this from a place of judgment. I'm telling you this from a place of revelation. I realized that I prayed for this life. I prayed for a life where my schedule was open and flexible, where I could decide what I did every day. And in my mind, because in your mind, you don't see it happening, okay? Nobody says, Lord, I want you to bless me so I can stop doing the work that I've been doing. Nobody says that, right? Nobody says that thing. In my mind, I saw it going a different way, that I would have an open schedule, that I would still get up early in the morning, that I would read my Bible for 2 hours. I usually get my 30 minutes in sometime throughout the day, but that I would read and study my Bible for 2 hours first thing in the morning. Then I would get showered, I would get dressed, I would then come downstairs to my workspace, and then I would work my 8 hours, and somewhere during those 8 hours, spend another 30 minutes in Bible study, right? Then I would leave my office and I would cook because I'm right here, I'm home. I would be able to cook meals every day. I'm not fighting with the commute. This is the picture I painted in my head. And if you are still, if you are an entrepreneurial hopeful who is still working and you have a side hustle that you're trying to grow, you haven't crossed over yet, that's probably what you have in your mind, right? That you'll have this flexible schedule. You'll be able to do this. You'll go to church every Sunday. All these wonderful things. But guess what? And don't y'all judge me. Guess what? Got the blessing. I'm able to schedule my time the way I want. And I can tell you that the amount of time, the amount of days that I get up and I spend those 2 hours in the Word is sporadic at best. And I'm talking first fruit. I'm not talking, I don't get into the Bible all day. I definitely ain't saying that. Right. And so that's the thing. We kind of make these exceptions and we make these allowances. So for me, it's that I used to get up and give God the first fruit of my time. I used to give him the first fruit of my time. And the 24 minutes I did in the middle of the day because I needed to get dressed and go to work. So I could essentially be giving God the first fruit of my day, which is 2 hours and 24 minutes, right? First fruits before I did any work, before I recorded a podcast, before I thought about dinner, before I started laundry. I could literally get up, do the Word, 2 hours and 24 minutes, and then I could do everything else in my day. That is what I did before. That is what I prayed for. I thought, oh, this is going to be so much better. But now I'm getting it in during the day, or I'm finishing up, barely getting it in at the end of the day. And there is nothing, there's nothing wrong with that, right? In principle, I'm still getting in 2 hours and 24 minutes. I'm still getting my time in the Word. So it's like, okay, you can kind of give yourself an allowance for that, right? But this is the thing. You are blessed to steward and to serve and to bless other people and to be the light. And I don't shine as bright, and this is just real. I don't shine as bright during the day when I don't get that Word in first thing in the morning. That's just We're keeping it 100. So I have all this time. I have all this freedom that I asked for. But now this freedom has replaced a thing that I was doing before. Now this freedom is more important than spending 2 hours and 24 minutes of my day with God. That's ridiculous. There's absolutely no reason for it. And so I don't know what your situation is. So here's an example. Before you got the new job that you prayed for, you were going to church. Let's say you were going to church 3 Sundays out the month, right? And you were only missing it if you absolutely had to, if you worked late or something like that. Now you have the position you want. You're off on Saturdays and Sundays, and now you're using Saturdays and Sundays to do something completely else. You still catching the sermon online though, right? Like, oh, it's fine as long as I'm still getting the word in. It's cool that I'm not actually going to church. The church is just not a building. I know what you're like. You don't have to email me about it. I already get what you're about to say. But this is the thing. The standard is that we would not forsake fellowshipping the way others do, that we would go into some type of corporate worship. And part of going into corporate worship is it leads and lends itself to us building relationships with other believers. It lends itself to us being able to serve in our local churches as opposed to consuming and watching online when we have a local church that we can attend, one that we were attending before we got blessed with this. And it's so easy to do. Sometimes it just literally sneaks up on you. It's not a conscious decision. You don't say, oh, now that God gave me the blessing I was looking for, I'm going to replace him with the blessing. No, nobody said, I'm not saying you saying that out loud, but it happens. And so that's why we have to be careful with the blessing, because the blessing is a good thing. It's a thing that God gave you. Maybe you prayed for children and now you have children and you don't have time to go to church. Maybe you prayed for a spouse and now you have a spouse and now y'all not going to church. Y'all are going on vacations every weekend, right? And I'm not talking about things you never did. And I'm also talking to people who had some type of routine, some type of commitment to spending time with God or going to church or volunteering in church, something. And now you've been blessed with the thing you've been asking God, constantly asking God to bless you with this thing. You have it and you ain't made no time for him like you used to. You're not getting in the building like you used to. I'm not talking about people who never thought it was necessary to get in the building, who've always been so free-spirited that they just, no, I don't need to go to the building. I'm going to watch it online. I'll go to Bedside Baptist. Cool. I'm not even trying to get into a conversation about whether you should be in the building or not. But I'm talking about when there's a shift, when there were things that you used to do that now because you have the blessing, you are making up excuses and now you don't do. So you were going to church, but now you ain't going to church. You were in an e-group or in a Bible study group, but now you're not in a Bible study group. You were volunteering, now you're not volunteering. You were getting up, Courage Molina, at as early as you needed to, giving God your first fruits, and now you're not. And listen, God is not sitting around being legalistic about it, but there is a danger with replacing God with the thing that we've been blessed with. If you think about Abraham, who desperately wanted a child, and God was like, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you the father of many nations. You won't even be able to count them. All of this, right? In his old age, he and his wife finally have a child, Isaac. And then when Isaac gets older, God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And there's a test there to see. Now, Abraham has been following me all this time. He followed me when I told him to get up and go into the land that I will show him. Will he now sacrifice the thing that he prayed for? His blessing. Now, he had other blessings. He was rich with silver and gold. He was rich in livestock and land. So he was big fish. Okay. I'm not saying he didn't have other blessings. He certainly had other blessings. Not to mention, he also had Ishmael, who was from his wife's handmaid or servant. So he had a kid also, right? This wasn't his first baby. He had another son. But this was the thing he prayed for. He prayed for an heir. It's like, what does it matter for me to be blessed when somebody else is going to inherit everything I have? Someone from another clan, tribe, somebody, my cousin, them family going to inherit everything I have. And God said, not so. Sarah's going to give you a kid. So now Sarah gives him a kid. Sarah's pregnant and she's old, 90 years old. And now this kid grows up. They love him, so excited about what the Lord has done. And then the Lord says, I want you to sacrifice Isaac. He heeds the voice of the Lord. He takes his son. He gets his help, and he's like, okay, I got to go make a sacrifice to the Lord. He gets the wood. He gets the rope, whatever he needs to make the sacrifice. And as they're walking towards, because he says yes, so he's walking in it. He's not like me, side note, or you sometimes, right? Not judging you, just saying we get like this, where God tells us to do something difficult, has called us to do something difficult, to sacrifice something, and we don't say yes, or we say yes, but we don't move. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was saying how now when she tells my nephew, my younger nephew, he's like ninth grade, when she tells him to take out the trash, she says, or when she tells him to do anything, she says, now, hey, take out the trash right now. Because she will say, hey, would you take out the trash? And he'll say yes, but then hours later, the trash is still not taken out. Which obviously is very upsetting to her, but it's funny mostly because it's not me and it's not my kid. Because that's aggravated to tell somebody to do something, for them to say yes and they don't move. But we are like that very often. God tells us to do something, we say yes, but we don't actually move. Abraham was not like that. He told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. He went, he got Isaac, he got all the stuff that he needed, and he started the journey towards where he would go to sacrifice. He gets there. He sets up the wood. He ties the boy down. That's bananas. Ties the boy down, takes the knife out. Now, on the way up there, Isaac asked his dad, he says, okay, I see we got these sticks, right? We got this wood, check. We got this rope, check. We got the knife, check. But where is the ram that we about to sacrifice? And Abraham says, don't worry about that, boy. The Lord is going to provide. So they get up to the top. I wonder what Isaac felt like. Like, that had to be crazy. But Isaac gets tied down. Abraham, his father, raises his hand with the knife in hand to actually sacrifice the child. And the angel of God says, don't do it. God was testing you to see if this thing he blessed you with, right, if you would keep it from him. And so now Abraham looks up and there's a ram in the bush. And so he brings the ram and he sacrifices the ram, right? So I know we've heard that saying before, there's a ram in the bush. It's great. It's a wonderful thing. But the thing with the ram in the bush blessing that we sometimes are asking for is that the ram in the bush is for a sacrifice. So Abraham never would have saw it if he hadn't been willing to give up the blessing he had prayed for. To sit in that for a second. He wouldn't have seen the ram if he had been unwilling to sacrifice the very thing he prayed for. But Abraham hadn't fallen into the thing that we often fall into, where we allow the blessing to replace the one who gave us the blessing, where we allow the promise to replace the promise keeper in our hearts. Make no mistake about it. You are blessed with that thing, with the relationship, with the new job, with the new opportunity, so that you can steward that thing, so that you can serve better, so that you can bless someone else, so that you can be the light in a dark place, not so you can start to focus only on the blessing. Don't pray all these days, months and months. Every month you go into church, you're praying for children. Then God blesses you. Now you're not going to church because you got children. Cut it out. We just have to be careful, right? It's not this blatant disrespect. We didn't intend for it to happen, but if we're not careful, it happens. We start to get consumed with the thing we wanted so much. Start to get consumed with the marriage. We start to get consumed with the children. We're consumed with the business. I'm consumed with my freedom. I have so much freedom. I can do it anytime. I legit can do it anytime. And sometimes we tell ourselves we are too busy. This is just a season. There is never, come on, Jesus. Let me just say this. There is not a season in which God is leading you to spend less time in the Word, less time, understand, in His presence. That's not like a thing. That's not a thing. Okay? He's not leading you to spend less time with Him, less time in His presence, giving Him some type of scraps. Like, well, I did see a sermon, I watched it online. Well, I did go to church. You're asking God for more money, asking for an increase, but now you didn't increase your tithe. So you were making 50 grand. Now you're making 100 grand. Now you're making, $80,000, and your tithe didn't increase. Please understand, He blessed you so that you could be a blessing. He blessed you so that you could steward the blessing. You could take care of it. He blessed you so that you could serve more, serve better. He blessed you so that you can bless somebody else. He blessed you so that you could be the light. Not so you could have a job where now you're the manager and you used to talk about sermons and you used to talk about what God was doing in your life. Now you ain't mention God at all. You used to pray all the time, but now you have a platform, you have a YouTube channel, Instagram, whatever you have, and you ain't said nothing about how your faith has changed you, how your faith has impacted where you are, how your faith kept you when you ain't have no followers. You ain't talking about God at all. You were talking about Him all the time when you were small time. Now He's blessed you to be big time, and He can't get a shout out. And it's not intentional. Nobody's sitting around saying, oh, I'm going to keep God a secret. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Most of us are not sitting around saying, now that I've been blessed with this thing, I'm going to play God to the left. We not doing that. That's not what we're saying. But we have to be careful, right? So I want you to consider the blessings that you have right now, right? Things that you've been blessed with that you can remember. Because I know we get spiritual amnesia. Sometimes we forget how we prayed for something. And I don't mean that you necessarily wrote it down in a prayer journal. You know it was a desire of your heart, right? That you kind of tossed around like, Lord, when I'm going to find a good man? Lord, when I'm going to get a good job? Lord, bless me so I can have my own business, right? I want you to think about those blessings. I want you to make a list, actually. Let's get some application going on in 2020. Don't just be listening to this podcast, saying, preach, sister, and then just moving on. You ain't did jack. Let's grow together this year through the podcast. 2020, we're going to grow together. So I want you to make a list of, let's say, 5 blessings that you prayed for, 2 blessings, 1, whatever you got. Make a list, take some time, and make a list of the blessings that you have right now that you can remember praying for. All right, you can remember praying for these blessings. I want you to write them down. And then I want you to see and consider if any of those blessings that you have now have interfered with your pressing into time in the Word, time with God, and time in church. Now, if you wasn't going to church before, then obviously that part don't apply to you. But I'm talking to you. If it's you, I'm talking to you. You know this sermon. You know this podcast, this episode in particular is for you. You prayed for it. You was going to church. You was doing whatever it was you were doing for the Lord. So you was so deep, so heavy in it. Now you got it, and it is pulling you away You're spending less time in church. You're spending less time with God. You're spending less time in the Word. Why, Sway? Because it's easy to do. Now, I'm not even talking about the things that you've accepted that are not blessings from God. I ain't even talking about that. I'm not talking about the things that you've accepted that you've started to do because you started to doubt whether or not God is going to bring the blessing to you. I ain't talking about that stuff. That's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother episode, right? Like those relationships that maybe God didn't give you, but you in them anyway because you don't believe that He's actually going to bring you, you know, a man or a woman who is worthy of your time and who's going to treat you, you know, like you're worthy. So that we just doing whatever with whoever. I ain't talking about that. Not on this podcast. Not today. Anyway, just talking about the things that you know you prayed for. You know that God gave them to you, and now, you know, considering whether or not they've replaced some of the things you were doing with God, through God, the time you were spending. And then make the decision to do something about it. What are you going to do as a result? If you make this list of blessings and you can circle one or two and you're like, yeah, honest to God, now that I have this, right? So for me, I've prayed for a lot of things over time. And one of the things that I've been blessed with is the ability to, you know, kind of have my own schedule. And I realized that I've allowed this, the work that I do, even the ministry, and the ministry is a blessing. So I'm not talking about bad stuff, right? The ministry is a blessing. Being executive director of Courage Melina Ministries, being the lead minister, that's a blessing, friends. That is a blessing, okay? But I've allowed that blessing to replace and interfere with what was so important to me before. And what was so important to me before was spending my first fruits with God. And so now that I recognize that, what am I going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to spending my first fruits with God. That's what I'm going to do. Starting my day with 2 hours. And if that means that things don't get done, so for me, that means I have to get up super early still because pretty much everyone is home in my house except for my husband. And so at a certain time, the noise level gets going. And so I can't do my recordings if I need to record, which I do a lot of recording, right? The podcast, the YouTube videos, like all this stuff. I can't do that once people start to wake up, and people start to get up relatively early around here, making noise, the dog, all of that. So if I'm going to continue to give God the 2 hours and 24 minutes that I said I would if I was blessed with this time, like, oh, God, if you bless me with this, then I'll be able to fill in the blank. You remember that day you prayed like that? God, if you bless me with this, God, when you bless me with this, we're going to be a boom, boom, boom. We're going to be this. We're going to be that. You just capping. That's what the kids say. The kids say capping, which means lying. You just cap it. Because I said it. I said, God, if you bless me with this, I am going to get up in the morning and I'm going to get my 2 hours and 24 minutes in and give you the first fruits of my day. Child, cap. I still spend time in the word capping that it's the first fruits, though. It's horrible. It's not horrible. It's just not great. And that's how we can get caught up. And then we jeopardize the blessing. I wasn't going to go there, but now it's here. Now we're here. That's the thing. That when you allow the blessing to replace God, you jeopardize the blessing. Because I got to tell you this, and this might not like to hear it, but it's the truth. God is not so concerned. Let me say this. God's number one concern is where you will spend an eternity. That's priority number one. Where you will spend an eternity. And that you continue to follow him. So maybe priority one is where you will spend an eternity, and two, that you are obedient. Top two priorities right there. Where you will spend eternity and that you be obedient to him. Top two things, top two priorities. And if you look throughout the Bible, what happened was they just started to hang out with other people. They just started to steer clear of things. And God is like, this is why I told y'all not to do that. Because when you do this, it just leads you further and further away. Now you've been blessed with this new relationship and you ain't been to church in 6 months. Or maybe you've been once in the last 6 months. Or now you've been blessed with this business and I haven't done 224 since the early days of me quitting my job. I have not done 224 first thing in the morning since the early days, not consistently. There have been some sporadic moments, but not consistently. Absolutely not consistently. That's not, hey, I don't want to get caught up. I don't want to get caught up because I know that it's not always going to be like good versus evil. Sometimes it's just going to be good versus God. Okay? It's not always going to be a choice between good versus evil. Should I go to church or should I go to the club? It's not always going to be that. It's going to be, should I take the kids to the movies on Sunday or should we go to church? And the movies, that's a good thing, but church is a God thing, right? Should I, watch this documentary? Should I watch this training video? Or should I spend time in the Word, right? Like, just saying, just putting it out there. So that's what I want you to do. I'm going to get out of here and let you get to it. I'm thinking about what your blessings are, circling the ones that you need to be careful with, and then deciding what you're going to do. Application. Listen, I love you. If you have not joined the Courage Crusaders and you are a woman of faith, then definitely do that. Check us out on Facebook. Courage Crusaders is a Facebook group. It's a private group. It's amazing. It's for things just like this. Hey, how can you guys hold me accountable? This is what I'm going to be doing. Can I get an accountability partner? It's really for women who want to grow their faith, who want to become bolder in their faith, more confident, and courageous enough to really go after things that they want in this life, things that God said they could have. So it's an amazing group. You should definitely get in it. They are in the show notes. And make sure you check out our sponsor. Hey, I want to hear from you guys. Send me an email about how you're loving the podcast or how you're not loving the podcast. I guess I'll take those emails too. That's fine. Usually I'm like, if you don't like the podcast, keep it to yourself. But this is 2020. And so we're all growing this year, myself included. So send me an email. I'd just love to hear from you guys. And I definitely want you sharing. I'd love for you to write a review. Hit me up on social media. I'm Courage Molina on Facebook, Courage Molina on Instagram, and be sure to like the ministry page, Courage Molina Ministry. All right, until next time, I love you guys. Be strong and very courageous. Later.